Network Entertainment.
Do we really want to overcome Hiya? Or is there another more important thing that we have to push for? Is there a larger thing that we have to align ourselves to? So yung Hiya, if you see it as an obstacle, so just say bahala na and go. Yun lang yun, di ba? There are three ways generally that we deal with Hiya. Either we freeze, biglang
Flight or fight.
Right, flight or fight. Or bahala na. And so in this case, bahala na really becomes such a powerful mantra that you can say whenever you're faced in a scenario that you have no control over.
Right.
So this is where we put the concept of kapalaran, right? Which is in your palm, nasa palad mo.
Right. But then you have to try.
Of course. Nasa Diyos ang awa, nasa tao ang gawa.
Ay,
diba?
Batman ang gawa. Hi, this is Mirza Season. Welcome to You Can Do This, a podcast that'll help you achieve your dreams and goals one episode at a time. What are you waiting for? Let's go! Nakakaya naman. Huwag na lang nahiya ako. Mamamatay ako sa hiya. Hindi na siya nahiya. Walang hiya. Wala kang kahihiyan. Who hasn't uttered, thought, or heard these words, which are so prevalent in daily conversation and even our consciousness? One of my top performing Instagram reels and TikTok videos in Tagalog is called Hiya, malaking hadlang sa pag-asenso, which means big obstacle to success. It resonated with so many, and I was particularly struck by one comment that read, Opo, mas takot po akong mamatay sa kahihiyan kesa mamatay mismo. She's more afraid of dying of shame than dying itself. So wow, when I came across an Instagram post discussing the concept and manifestations of Hiya, I knew it definitely merited an episode and sought out the expert behind the account, Siko Diwa, to the show. A psychologist and researcher focusing on transpersonal and indigenous psychology, he has a master's degree from the Ateneo de Manila University, where his research focus was inspired mainly by the psycho-spiritual studies of Father Jaime Bulatao. He's currently a senior lecturer at UP Diliman. Siko Diwa, from Psicologia or Psychology and Diwa or Consciousness, is the name of his blog, podcast, and Instagram account where he shares his research and insights. Please welcome Carl Cervantes.
Hey, hello everyone.
Hi, Carl.
Thanks for inviting me, Mirza.
Yes, thank you for making it here all the way from UP.
Yeah. Oh.
So tell us about Siko Diwa and your work and expertise in Psikolohyang Pilipino or Indigenous Filipino psychology.
Right. So my work focuses mainly on, well, it started with yung mga folk beliefs natin. Sorry,
Okay.
should I be speaking in English? Or
No, Taglish
pwede?
is fine.
Taglish lang tayo.
Yes, yes.
Right. So it started with my fascination with folk beliefs. I mean, lahat naman siguro tayo lumaki na may mga paniniwala, mga pamahiin or whatever it is. And I just happened to grow up with really spiritual, religious family, and ang daming mga kababalaghan, you know, na mga duwende, whatever it is, mga
Okay.
encanto, these stories. And as I started to explore it really more formally in my graduate studies, the more I realized na, it's so part of our culture that it really says something about our culture. Yung mga paniniwala natin sa, let's say, sabihin natin, tabi-tabi po. Sabihin natin, yeah, baka naniniwala ka sa duwende, whatever it is. But to me, I would see it psychologically as, it's our respect for nature. It's our deeper respect for nature. It's a care for it.
Right.
Na naproproject as a spirit or a duende or whatever it is, right? So the more I studied that, the more I researched into these materials, the more I realized that, a huge part of our own psychology, which is indigenous psychology, really is still alive sa atin ngayon. The problem is na nade-define natin ang sarili natin based on foreign standards.
Right.
Mas inuuna pa natin yung opinions of those who only see us on the surface level. So that has been in history, that has been the problem with regard to understanding sino ba ang Pilipino. Mas pinapakinggan natin yung ibang tao telling us who we are.
Right.
But di natin itanong, who are we?
Right.
based on our own understanding. And that's why, when we're discussing Hiya today, that's really a very interesting example, because on the outside you see it as definitely it's shame, it's embarrassment. It appears to be shame and embarrassment, but on the inside we know that nahihiya ka lang naman if you care about that relationship.
Right.
So it's a care, it's a sensitivity, it's good manners, essentially.
Consideration.
Consideration. So it's not just shame.
Right.
It can be shame on the outside lang. So if you're an outsider looking at Filipinos and saying, oh, they have hiya, oh, okay, so it's just shame? No, because they don't understand the inside, the deeper meaning to us.
Wow.
Ayan.
Okay, malalim yan. Deeper meaning
Lalalim
talaga.
pa tayo. We'll see this.
Okay, so what were your own, on a personal level, what were your own experiences or beliefs or attitudes about Hiya growing up? As I mentioned earlier before the show, when I Googled you, it turns out you were an actor in your youth. So,
Right.
am I right to assume na hindi ka mahiyain, or were you actually mahiyain?
Actually, I think I'm blessed to have grown up in a family where I was hindi na, I wouldn't say I was pushed to do things. It was more like, sige, try mo.
Okay.
See where it
Right,
goes. I have very supportive parents, very supportive family. So I'm very, very blessed and grateful
Right.
for that. But syempre, growing up, because I had, even as a child, I had very strange interests. I mean, minsan lang naman yung mahilig talaga sa magic and mythology. Mga
Okay.
ganyan. I was a very big magic and mythology kid. No?
Okay.
So I had my own, parang may sariling mundo yung tawag, di ba? Yun yung term natin. So you
May
have your
mga
own
imaginary
world.
friends
Yeah.
ka ba?
Well, I wouldn't say nakikita ko sila. That would be
sige.
scary. Pero in on the creative level na parang, you have all these interesting ways of looking at things. Very creative. So for kids who are told na may sarili silang mundo, it's really just a shorthand for that's a very creative child. Creative to the point na it's too unique na we don't understand it. Nasa
Right.
ibang mundo na sila, right? So growing up with that, I just explored what I felt like was right to me. And it just so happens na during the time I was in college, I really loved performing. So I was in school plays, I was performing some short films. And then ayun, nagtuloy-tuloy. I went into a reality show after I
okay.
graduated.
Which one?
Starstruck.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what you saw.
Right,
It was
right.
season 6, I think. It was a very interesting experience in my life. And then after no, nagtuloy-tuloy, inalagaan naman ako dun. So it was really a good experience for me. I was able to meet a lot of very interesting people, learn a lot of very interesting things. And as we went through yung mga acting workshops, that's when I realized na, wow, a lot of these acting workshop stuff is psychological.
Yes.
Very deeply psychological. There was a lot of inner work. There was a lot of papasok ka sa loob mo, into your past, into your history. And that got me thinking again of my earlier interest. Tas parang bumabalik ako dun sa, what is it that I want? What is it that I want to explore? So when it comes to Hiya, I feel like I had that emotional regulation, being cared for and supported by parents who were very supportive of what I wanted to try. So it comes down to that then. It's the systems and the families that you're with that can suppress identity or allow it to grow. And that's what happens when it comes to hiya, diba?
Yeah.
Some people nasusuppress yung identity nila because mahiya ka naman. Ano na lang sasabihin ng ibang tao, right?
So instead they have emotional dysregulation.
Right. So for me, I luckily I think na I was given the space to really explore things, to be cringy at some points.
Right.
Definitely.
And so fast forward to today, what would you say is the most important thing you've learned about hiya?
So the way it's understood kasi, I hear this a lot when people talk about Filipino cultural values. They say na, Filipino cultural values can be toxic.
Yes.
And that's what we start to think. Now, what does toxic mean? And question, why would we value something that's toxic? So it now makes you think, did we change as people, or did the system and the society change to make us feel that our cultural values no longer work? So I would say na anything that comes from culture, and we would learn this in the study of culture, anything that comes from culture is really something that evolved with people. Kasi if you're in a place, for example, na napakalamig, part of your culture will be developing clothes na
Right,
makapal, right?
right.
And with us, if we look at our history, a lot of our clothes were, I mean, minsan wala pang ang suot. Very light
Right,
material,
right.
yung pinya, whatever it is. So, um, so as we evolved through our environment and through the people that we've been interacting with, nade-develop yung how we collaborate with each other, social dynamics. And so yung hiya evolved as a way to keep each other accountable.
Right.
Diba? I mean, that's a way of creating context-specific manners. Diba?
Yeah.
It would make sense. You enter into a unique community. If we think of, let's say, early Filipino communities as mga bara-barangay, right? Small communities that come together. And you as an outsider coming in, syempre, mangingiramdam ka muna. Makikiramdam. So it really evolved. But today, since we're living in a world where it's more important to get ahead, get
Right,
above people,
right.
compete with people, all these older values of collaboration, mutual accountability, parang masyado na siyang soft for a world that's what we call, quote-unquote, no, dog eat dog, or it's a rat race. Grabe yung mga metaphors natin.
Right,
no?
right.
So in that context, hiya is just, it won't help you.
It's outmoded.
Oh. So it's,
Or
is
would
it
you say it's a westernization of culture, or maybe globalization?
right? Oh, that's interesting then, no? Within the field of where I'm studying, no, indigenous psychology, mahirap yung sasabihin lang natin everything West is bad or everything Filipino is
It's not
good.
black and white.
Parang it's never black and white. So when we say West, what do we really mean when we say West? Ang daming West. So is it just American? Is it just European? Parang ano yung West, right? I would say na in every culture, there are qualities that are individualistic. Makasarili nga yung term natin, di ba? And there are attitudes that are also togetherness, tayo, kapwa, and so on. But just because it appears in our language in this way doesn't mean na Filipino lang nakaka-experience. Tao pa rin naman tayo, right? But that's what we assume when we say, oh, modernization. Is modernization westernization? Not necessarily.
Right.
When we modernize our world, our transportation systems, our infrastructure, and so on, when we modernize, it should match what we are naturally good at.
Right.
Dapat ganun siya, di ba? But then because we're applying a foreign worldview, which we can say na westernized in general, parang tugma ba siya sa atin? Then we have to ask, parang
Right.
tugma ba siya sa atin? Who can afford it? Who is it accessible to, really? So when it comes to how can we survive in a system that's very foreign to us, obviously a lot of older values will feel out of place. But if you go to certain places in the country na ganun pa rin ang pamumuhay, parang bagay pa rin, right? Because that's the environment that still works.
Right. Right. So when well, first of all, let's go back to basics first. So what is the definition of hiya, or
Right.
how do you
Oo nga.
explain the meaning of it in our culture?
Okay. So hiya, if you translate it lang into English, and this is the problem when we just find translations, so
Yeah,
it never
yeah.
really fits so
Right,
well.
right.
So if we translate hiya into English, it would just be shame, embarrassment, which is a very limiting, I don't know,
Yeah.
napaka-limiting. Because
Yeah.
so there was a scholar, one of the pioneers in the indigenization movement is Zeus Salazar, and the others also talked about the fact that hiya is present in so many different ways. Right? So nahihiya is I'm shy. Ikinahihiya means
I'm ashamed
I'm ashamed of something or of you. Napahiya.
is
Ay, iba pa yan, di ba?
embarrassed.
Embarrassed, but in a very specific one. Napahiya siya.
Okay.
Accidental. But then, pinahiya is intentional.
Okay.
So, and then another one would be, iba pa yun sa mga iba-iba nating context. It depends on where it is. But if we look at hiya, it's an uncomfortable emotion, obviously. But it's only uncomfortable because we don't want to disrupt some kind of harmony
Right.
that already exists. So if we care about a relationship, syempre may hiya tayo. Because we care about this, we don't want to break it.
Right.
Nakikiramdam kasi tayo. So when we look at the term hiya as part of our cultural values, we can't just look at it by itself. Nakatali siya sa pakikipagkapwa. Nakatali siya sa pakikiramdam. And all these feelings are necessary because we want to foster some kind of connection with people. And that's very necessary. Hiya is just an expression of, I care for you. I care for my friends. Kasi, di ba, pag nahihiya lang naman tayo pero not necessarily guilty sa ginawa natin, di ba? Mas nahihiya ako na nalaman mo kaysa sa ginawa ko, right?
Right.
So, in that case, we see hiya only in relationships where we care about the person. If I'm in a relationship with, so I have a partner, may hiya ako sa parents niya because, I want to care for that relationship. May hiya ako sa teacher ko, for example, or sa pare or whoever it is because you care about that relationship. But with a person that you don't really care about, wala ka namang hiya, right? Wala ka namang pakialam.
Right.
So, hiya wouldn't exist in that scenario because you don't see them as part of your kapwa.
Mga Immortal, listen to the Underpaid Podcast with me, Stanley Chi, wherein we talk about work-related topics in a light manner na parang nagchichismisan lang tayo or nagkukwentuhan. Listen for free on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or kung saan ka man nakikinig ng podcast. Kita-kits!
Right.
Right?
So when does it impede one's growth? For example, if you care too much about what others
Right.
think, such that you don't speak up or you don't assert what you want to happen.
Right. And this is when it becomes a real problem, no? When hiya is weaponized, at least in the context of a world that's kanya-kanya, to each their own, and it really is me versus you, and it's a hierarchy that I have to be on top, and hiya becomes a way to push people down. Ano na lang iisipin ng iba, or mahiya ka naman, like that's something, right? But also we have to ask, no, what does it mean for a person to be walang hiya?
Right.
Because a person who is walang hiya is someone who is rude, diba? Bastos,
Right,
doesn't
right.
care about people. They have no sensitivity. So when we think about cultural values, we have to ask, is this still leading me towards others? Or is it pushing people down?
Right.
Is it pushing people away na kanya-kanya, or is it us coming together na tayo? Because you can use the same cultural values. A person can be so good in speaking in Tagalog or Hiligaynon or whatever it is, but they're coming from a mindset that's very, foreign or kanya-kanya or whatever it is. So when a person is using these values against us, we have to ask, is the intention here to bring us together or to push us away? Because if it's to push us away, then maybe it's not actually the value. It's something else. Ulterior motive, transactional relationship, parang ganon. So that's something we have to ask also. Is this leading me towards kapwa?
Right.
Otherwise, it's just something to push us down.
When does it impede you from growing into the individual that you were meant to be as opposed to conforming to norms, societal norms?
Yan pang isa sa sinasabi natin about Filipinos, no? Na parang, we're conformist, pakikisama, ganyan. Conformity is medyo complex because it's really tied to our beliefs and how we've been taught to believe. So yung conformity na yan is really just a problem because we prioritize na dapat unique tayo, dapat individual. And that's very kanya-kanya. That comes from a kanya-kanya perspective. And that's fine if you want to promote yourself. Definitely, show up, diba? But pakikisama is not just conformity. Again, conformity is pushing people down. How does pakikisama look like when it's about coming together? It would be about me caring for you, sabay-sabay tayo, coming in solidarity. If you're doing something fun, hindi ko sisirain ang trip mo. I'll join you. So that's a kind of pakikisama that really fosters friendship and relationship. But when it's about showing up for your true self, it really is my inner self, yung loob ko, aligned with my outer world? Kasi if it's, for example, how we've been taught kasi, is that someone tells us what to think. And we nai-imbibe natin yun.
Right.
And we set ourselves against the standards of that thing.
Right.
That's pagkukunwari lang yan. Kasi yung labas, pinatong lang natin sa loob natin. So it really is just a costume.
Right.
But if we come from the inner self, yung tinatawag na loob ng tao, and then we move outwards, that's the authentic self. Yun yung pagpapakatotoo, the authenticity. Yung term na loob,
Yeah, sure.
Because yung term na loob appears, that's why it's so important in our study of psychology and philosophy, is because it appears so frequently in our language. Bukas loob, kusang loob, kagandahang loob, utang na loob, whatever it is. All of this implies that the inner self is relational. Kasi if you do something good, you say kagandahang loob, your inner self is beautiful. And how can you be vulnerable to other people? Bukas loob. Your inner self is open. And when you're filled with conviction, buo ang loob mo. And suddenly the inner self is changed, it shifts, pagbabagong loob, that the outer world manifests what is inside you. And if Hiya is used to push that down, then that, as you said, can impede who we are.
Right.
But really, if we really look into ourselves, kung titingnan natin ang loob natin, we won't see more of ourselves. We will see other people. At ito yung tinatawag ni Father Albert Alejo na reflection is a form of solidarity. Si Father Alejo is a poet philosopher. No? He said something wonderful, a beautiful metaphor. Sabi niya, we're like scattered islands in the sea. But then if you look beneath the waters, it's all connected. The islands are connected underwater. So it's the depth in the inner self.
Right.
Kakatok ka sa puso ng ibang tao. Sabi mo, tao po, I'm human, looking for the humanity within you. And when we have that connection and not the separation of kanya-kanya, then we can finally connect on a real deeper level and show up as ourselves, because we are in a space where we are respected, cared for, may hiya rin yung ibang tao. And so there's that expectation na may hiya ako kasi may hiya ka rin, may pakikiramdam ako kasi because I care about you and other people as well. So it's a system and not just me.
Right.
Diba?
So kailan nagiging sama ng loob?
Yun pa.
Kailan siya nagiging sama ng loob?
But you see, diba, yung mismong loob, tayo kasi meron tayong pakikiramdam which is a very important aspect of Filipino social dynamics, diba? Yung pakikiramdam natin is feeling when a person is this and that. Pag nagtatampo siya, feel natin yun.
Right.
Because we care. So, we can sense kung kumukulo siya sa loob. Right?
Right.
We can sense.
Okay. How does Hiya figure when it comes to assertiveness or expressing your authenticity?
Right. And this is very interesting to talk about also. Kasi in Filipino psychology, during the early days ng pag-aaral ng Filipino psychology, the early scholars believed that Filipinos prioritized over everything else smooth interpersonal values.
Right.
Now we have to, walang away. Let's just keep it.
Don't disturb the status quo.
Don't disturb the status quo. And that is really an outsider's way of looking at us. Kasi on the surface level, yeah, definitely we would say na parang hindi tayo masyadong ganyan. But then when the indigenization movement started around the 60s, 70s, ganyan, sila Virgilio Enriquez, known as one of the pioneers of indigenous psychology, he pointed out na we don't just have accommodative values. So hindi lang tayo accommodating, we're also confrontative. We also have confrontative values.
We do?
Yes. Meron din tayo.
I thought we were non-confrontational.
See, that's
a myth.
Right. See, that's the problem nga. Kasi the whole idea that Filipinos are just passive and submissive and conforming. This is colonial, sadly. It's a colonial belief.
Okay.
Yun yung sinasabi na parang, look, they're passive and so they need empowerment and education, which is a colonial agenda.
Right.
But then, sabi ni Virgilio Enriquez, no, may confrontative din tayo . An example of this would be lakas ng loob. O sino ba yung mga taong may lakas ng loob?
Sila pula-pu.
Sila pula-pu, exactly. But also, today, mga bagong bayani natin, right? Firefighters, we have doctors, frontliners, definitely.
Right.
OFWs, a lot of people who would sacrifice their own ginhawa for the ginhawa ng pamilya nila, of sacrificing yourself for the good of other people, becoming heroes. Lakas na loob. Hindi lang yung tapang na wala lang.
Right.
It's a strength from the inner self. Loob na naman. Right? So that's one. Another one would be pakikibaka. Pakikibaka is so interesting kasi yung sabi ni Virgilio Enriquez and yung kapwa has levels. Kapwa has ibang tao and hindi ibang tao. Kung ibang tao ka, I don't know you yet. Kapwa ka pa rin. Kapwa tao, but I don't know you yet. Hindi ibang tao is hindi ka na others essentially, di ba?
Hindi ka na ibang tao.
Exactly, right? We still say that. And this is a negotiation. You can move from ibang tao to hindi ibang tao kung may pakikiramdam ka, kung may pakikipagkapwa-tao ka. The deepest level of kapwa is pakikiisa, which is oneness. Literally, isa. Pakiki is a prefix that we see when we imply something that is requested and shared. So pakiusap, please talk, right? So shared and a request. So when we say pakikibaka, it's sharing in the struggle. When we share with the struggle of people, hindi lang siya revolution or, ganyan. We see this a lot when people stand up for the rights of others. We see this when people fight with someone who is, let's say, going through a terminal disease. Pakikibaka din yun. And all of these are strength in adversity, right? And all of these are really, really powerful, and it shows how we can be in solidarity with other people. Kung yung loob mo aligned sa loob ng ibang tao, that's a form of pakikibaka. Parehas na tayo ng naiisip eh. And another cultural value that is also confrontative, I don't know if you'll agree with this, bahala na.
How so?
Right. So when we say bahala na, it's like, giving up, surrender, right? But then, when do we really say bahala na? It's when we've planned enough, right? Wala na tayo, hindi na natin alam. We're just gonna go with it. Bahala na. When we trust so much that we would just have to let go of burden in order to move forward. Bahala na does not care if there's an obstacle in your way. We don't care about the consequence anymore because bahala na means that we're gonna push through it, around it, whatever it is. Bahala na. I'll just figure it out. So it's a strength in the unknown, in uncertainty. And that's what makes it so powerful. Yung bahala, they say comes from bathala, which is, sa Diyos na, right? Sa Diyos mo na. But actually, bahala comes from the Sanskrit, which means burden. So bahala na is letting go of burden. So yun lang yun. Diba?
Right.
So these are confrontative values that are present in our culture. So, but you will see that in the confrontative values we have, hindi siya yung I'm going to assert myself over you or dominate you, because that's colonial, di ba? Pananakop yun eh. It's we will work together. We will come together. Pakikibaka. Lakas ng loob is me aligning my inner self with what really matters. And all of this really implies that it's a solidarity and connection with the world around you. Ganda,
Wow,
diba?
yeah.
It's so beautiful, and it's really sad na we don't see ourselves in this way anymore.
Right. We have been focusing on all the Western decreed weaknesses.
Yeah, but you have to ask the question, whose standard are we actually following?
Right.
Whose standard are we judging ourselves by?
Right.
Because if it's for them, bakit for them? Why? Why would we judge ourselves based on how others see us? Why don't we look at each other? Why don't we see ourselves as well?
Right. So, in your
balance
opinion,
lang naman yun eh. It's just, an outsider can tell you something that you can't see for yourself, definitely. But it's a balance. If you put too much value in what others say about yourself, parang hindi ka na aligned with your own self.
Right. So, given this paradigm shift, kind of
Paradigm shift.
maybe I have to rephrase my question.
No, go lang.
Which reads, how does one overcome hiya? But maybe it's not something to overcome, but maybe
something to reframe.
Reframe. How would you reframe it so that it doesn't impede anyone's growth?
Right. The important thing here is to always be asking the question, does this lead me towards kapwa? Does this lead me towards other people? So do we really want to overcome Hiya? Or is there another more important thing that we have to push for? Is there a larger thing that we have to align ourselves to? So yung Hiya, if you see it as an obstacle, so just say bahala na and go. Yun lang yun, di ba?
So for example, if we apply to a very practical
Sure, yeah.
example, let's say somebody's not progressing in her career because she's too nahihiya to speak in public, but
Right.
the job necessitates it. What would be your recommendation then?
Right. So doon na papasok yung confrontative values natin, right? There are a few so in the studies that have been done, no, on Hiya, there are three ways generally that we deal with Hiya. Either we freeze, no, biglang ano ka,
Flight or fight.
right, flight or fight, or bahala na. And so in this case, bahala na really becomes such a powerful mantra that you can say whenever you're faced in a scenario that you have no control over.
Right.
So this is where we put the concept of kapalaran, right? Which is in your palm, nasa palad mo.
Right. But then you have to try.
Of course, nasa Diyos ang awa, nasa tao ang gawa.
Kay
di ba?
Batman ang gawa. Okay, so it's kind of like do what you can with what you have and then let go of the outcome.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
But we really have to reassess lagi. Na is our behavior kanya-kanya? Is it like me away from you? Is it me against you? Or is it us together working towards something? It's always towards kapwa, towards solidarity, towards togetherness.
So if that person wants to succeed in her career, how is that? How does that figure in kapwa versus kanya-kanya?
But that's the thing, because our systems are so shaped in a way that's
Right.
that's already sometimes it's too hierarchical na or whatever it is. It really is there. There needs to be a trust. Trust and solidarity are very important also, and these are aligned with our values. So trust, again, bahala na, is really about if you don't know what's happening, if you don't know what's going to be the consequence of something that you feel like you need to do, wala ka na ring magagawa. Bahala na. Try.
Right,
See where
right.
you go.
Right.
Ito yung bugso, di ba? Right? The inner self that pushes you outward. Listen to that. Listen to the inner self. And align that with the world around you. Yung pagbabagong loob so that yung loob is aligned with labas. And that's how you, quote unquote, manifest things or whatever it is.
Right. Wow. You need to write a whole textbook. This is so groundbreaking.
Grabe naman.
So if there's one new mindset, and apart from the paradigm shift that you just provided, that our listeners can take away with them after the end of our conversation, what would you like that to be?
One mindset. Really? Okay.
About Hiya.
About Hiya. Like what I've been saying talaga, it really is about asking whether something, regardless, yung mga Filipino values natin, we just have terms for it. But these are just words that point to a more important reality. Regardless of whatever you call it, Hiya or whatever it is, doesn't really matter. What matters more is how you practice it and how you live out the meaning of these values. So what matters more is, does this move me towards people, towards what really matters, or does it separate me from them? Does it push people away? Does it step on others? So maybe let's move from the kanya-kanya way of thinking na parang, bahala ka, ikaw na dyan, ako dito,
right.
walang tulungan. Let's move towards an abot kapwa, abot kaya,
Right.
abot malay, abot dama, that kind of way of moving towards people, working with people. Because that's how we make change. We make change by coming together.
Wow. So think like an archipelago, not islands in the stream.
Amen. That's it. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much, Carl.
Yeah.
That was so enlightening. And
I hope it will take some time
eye-opening.
to sit
Right.
with a lot of us kasi we've been internalizing a lot of,
yeah. Right.
foreign
I
ways of
never saw
thinking.
it from that perspective. So thank you so much. And
Yeah.
hope to read and watch and hear more of what you have to say.
Yeah.
Where can people find you or learn more about your work?
Right. So people can find me on social media at Siko Diwa. It's spelled as it's pronounced. Siko Diwa.
Siko.
And well, they can look for me online in different places. I have a blog on Substack. I have a podcast on Spotify. Although hindi ko na masyadong ina-update, I do upload a lot of my talks on YouTube also, so they're there as an archive. And I have a lot of papers also na napapublish. So if you look through Google Scholar, you can also find my papers there. Yan.
And if you're a newbie, sign up first class.
Oh. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for listening to You Can Do This. If you want to know more about me, visit mirza.com. That's MYRZA.com. And follow me at Mirza Season on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and LinkedIn. If you like this episode, please don't forget to rate it 5 stars. Hit the follow button on your podcast streaming platforms and hit the notification bell to get alerted every time we release a new episode. Catch you at our next convo, and always remember, you can do this.
The opinions of podcast creators, hosts, and guests are not necessarily reflective of the official stance of the Pod Network Entertainment, its hosts, or other network programs. The content created by the people behind the podcast is personal and not meant to harm any religion, ethnicity, group, organization, company, or individual.